In this video, we are going to assess whether these Bitcoin buyers who have aggressively bought the cryptocurrency have finally been trapped, and if these sellers will be able to seek a bearish response in the market. Let's take some perspective. And now you are looking at the daily chart of Bitcoin. Remember that we are submerged in a macro bearish channel where recently, as you know, the cryptocurrency market has enjoyed a nice upward stretch. Frankly, very aggressive. But as you just saw, we are going to focus specifically on what is happening now since we are in a really interesting context. Going to the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin and zooming in a bit, you will notice how Bitcoin not long ago came into contact with a really macro structure, a very important structure. And since February 14, we have entered a ranging phase. And going to the hourly time frame, in this ranging phase from Crypto Insight, we have found multiple opportunities to profit from the market. Recently, I showed you how we were looking for a long around this area, and you could see that in the previous video. And if you remember in the last video, in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and throughout the crypto ecosystem, we were specifically looking for a trap by this structure. This trap that you are seeing here, to then look for a long entry in the market. It's happening as I wanted it to happen, okay? You will see in the video that will be published, which was recorded earlier, that we were expecting falls in the immediate term. Why? Because I expect an attempt to break this crit. I expect this to happen. Let's see. Why? Because look at Ethereum. Ethereum had room to fall to its level, and it still does. It still does. And look, there is room. To me, this is juicy, isn't it? Looking for the classic trap to go to the structure. An Ethereum structure that has recently allowed us to find thanks to updating the structure by seeing how these behaved. What do we see in Ethereum? That there is immediate room. You have already done a cleanup for us. They are getting ready. They are getting ready. For the immediate term, for the short term, for all this morning. Well, that bias to fall, at least to reach the structure, and that would make Bitcoin, going straight to the point, generate a sense of break, which in the end is a cleanup, a trap. And here we will work the same concept as the other day. Do you remember? Hey, if it breaks here strongly, we expect that trap and we don't care if the price collapses, if the price goes to the sky, but let's go long. Why? Because both paths, either the flat pattern to continue or the trap to go up, both paths focus us upwards in a small stretch. It's the same. We are at a market extreme. Let's see if they generate a trap scenario, hence why I have that feeling, that bearish bias since the morning in the markets to do a cleanup, a sense of breaking and being tricky. Let's look for a bit of momentum clearly in the trap to buy it. We look for a trap to buy Bitcoin, maybe not undo it here. And hey, if it then goes and prospers since it is already closing partials. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's go to M15. Yes, it has to fall. It has to fall more. This doesn't seem realistic to me that it's already done, that we're already there. I don't think so. For me, there has to be an attack that justifies the space Ethereum has, because look at Ethereum. If it's true Ethereum, what has it come to do? It has come to look for the point of control of the accumulation process. As it did here, breaks, confirms above the point of control, and goes up. Later, this point of control has been defined to react, and here we have the reaction. Whatever we want, the point of control is not going to be infinite. I mean, those buyers can't always defend it. It's common and it's okay if they can pierce it. With this scenario, let's zoom in. Let's go to 5 minutes, having this trap maybe now approaching for a short, let's see. But having this scenario in which it seemed to break, now it's going to do a validation, perhaps to continue and look for the stretch, could be. We have here an impulse, a channel, a range that comes to trap us. And with this bearish bias, well, offering us that stretch, at least in Ethereum, to come and find its structure. It is being understood. We're going to wait for it to come here at some point. It will be the context in which Bitcoin sets up that trap for us. That trap scenario at the moment Ethereum is at this point. A very good opportunity also to look for that long, As you've seen, the cryptocurrency market offers us great opportunities daily. We have to try not to confuse ourselves with the perspective in which we look at the chart, for example. Now the daily chart, if you realize the recent events. Apparently, they have not had any importance, but in reality, as you have just seen in time frames like 1 hour or 5 minutes, we will always find interesting stretches to trade. I'm going to share with you then what I think might happen next. obviously not pretending to have a crystal ball, since knowing exactly what will happen continuously in the financial markets is impossible. But we are going to look for a high probability approach. Well, notice how we started the video, paying close attention to this event on the Bitcoin chart in the 1-hour time frame. Specifically, you are looking at an order flow chart that allows us to see the transactional volume within each candle for each price level. This obviously gives us a very advanced perspective where we try to identify what the smart money is doing, or in other words, the strong hands. Well, now you are looking at the same Bitcoin chart, but on the order flow chart, well, initially we are going to pay attention to the entire macro range. Well, look, in this first impulse, we are going to identify a delta clearly oriented towards the ASC. Later, in this next impulse, we identify again, not only a lot of volume, but also a delta clearly oriented towards the ask. And as it could not be otherwise, this aggressive attack to the upside was accompanied by a lot of volume and by a differential oriented towards the ask. This differential is telling us that there has been greater ask pressure on the bid. This means that there has been a great intention on the part of market participants to exert aggressive buying, expecting the price to rise significantly, and we see that immediately the price was not able to prosper. And now, as we are recording this video, the event we were looking for is already happening. But still, don't worry, because we will try to see even further so that this video continues to make sense. Well, after all this absorption, we identify a tremendously sincere directional positioning. This attack is serious. Later on, these very important candles, called master candles, also show a large volume proportion with a delta also oriented towards the ask. And here, look at this erratic green candle surrounded by red candles. Again, a large differential oriented towards buying intention appears. And I think it is quite clear that this did not go anywhere. Now look, in this exercise of great cleanup, what do we observe? A great bullish impulse with a lot of momentum, with a lot of volume, and with a delta clearly oriented towards the ask again. All these purchases were unable to prosper, as we have objective evidence that there was an attempt to buy. And now, we are going to analyze the following, since someone could say, hey, look at this area. As well, there is also a strong bearish attack with a delta oriented to the beat, and then subsequently a very blatant accumulation of ask that is part of this bullish accumulation process. And here, what we are going to say is that, of course, in a relevant structural zone, we are always going to identify or find this type of behavior. And it is for that reason, among other reasons, that from Crypto Insight we have been looking for longs in this area. Just as we did when waiting for this trap, it was a trap that we expected to occur thanks to the advanced technical analysis that we have been analyzing for a long time and that we are now sharing with you. That is why we are going to identify that there was absorption here, just as there was in these attacks as well. But we are not going to give it the same macro weight of seeing the whole picture complete that tells us a narrative quite different from if we focus only on these points of contact. That, of course, we were going to find absorption and initiation of purchases to look for those longs in a much more micro time frame. So as I'm telling you, we are going to overlook those bullish attacks, and we are going to pay close attention to how these sellers you are seeing here are protecting their position quite clearly. Notice how we have a narrative in which we are identifying how the purchases are not prospering, how all this range has been absorbed at a macro level, at least for the moment, and how we are identifying that zone that those buyers who are absorbing the longs are now initiating their defense. Hence, we see how the price is unable to penetrate the identified zone. Once we have identified this macro positioning and how the big institutions, the smart money, are defending the zone around $51,925 approximately, that's when we have identified this distributive process, a very interesting distributive process, which we have seen how it has pierced to go and search for its guideline in a millimetric way. Honestly, this explanation is worth taking a picture of. But we are going to erase everything from the screen now, and we are going to zoom in and now considering the bias we have at a macro level, that they have absorbed the longs, and that now they are defending a critical zone that very recently they have compressed and distributed over the same, have already generated a first impulse here. We are going to ask ourselves, is the second bearish impulse coming, or is it going to fail? So now, I'm going to share what our vision is. But before, welcome to Crypto Insight, your ethical and moral channel for cryptocurrency technical analysis. Here, we really know what we're talking about. We conduct advanced technical analysis that has been developed for over 12 years. We upload videos several times a week. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, let me know and leave a comment with your opinion. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so you don't miss the next opportunity. And after seeing this dramatic pause that I hope has convinced you to subscribe to our Crypto Insight channel, if you haven't already, you're taking too long. We are then going to analyze what we were seeing from the beginning of the recording of this video on this chart. On one hand, from a more micro perspective, I hope you are located, remember? That is the zone that the big institutions that have absorbed the longs are defending, over there to the left and further up still. Well, all this was their compression, their distribution, which has generated a bearish impulse. In this distributive part, what we identify are large purchasing volumes, you see, in strategic places that, in no case, at no time, were able to lead the price in the desired direction. Hence, the smart money had many long positions. In other words, they had very, very interesting liquidity to absorb and drive Bitcoin to its point of interest. In this case, there is no doubt about it. We are already seeing it, that it has generated this bearish impulse by breaking its creek with great confidence. Remember, a creek is nothing more than a very relevant level. If it is broken, it has to be broken with great authority and determination. Notice how it has done so with a majestic single-bodied candle with high volume and with a delta oriented to the beat. Clearly directional. Well, we have seen how it went on to impact against its macro trend line, which is normal to see some sort of reaction. In fact, all morning has been a great opportunity for scalping longs, but that's not our focus right now. Instead, it's to see how the price was going to search for the creek, since after experiencing an impulse, what we can expect is a corrective pattern on a relevant structure, which in this case, there is no doubt, is this creek that serves as a boundary throughout the distributive part. Here, what we should have been observing was, on the one hand, to see if these buyers are really capable of pushing the price and then paying close attention. I invite you to later watch the beginning of the video, as at that moment we were seeing the price right on this trend line, and we were observing how the cluster was turning red, indicating that at a moment of great bullish strength, at the high part, in the area of interest, we have seen a delta oriented to the beat, reason enough to offer this reactive movement. Well, for the moment, let's say. Returning to the traditional chart, that, initially, the first part of this mess seems to have been 100 respected. So, here we are simply assessing an operational idea, which is based on everything I've already explained to you, and for the reasons I've outlined to you, this is the distribution. This is the bearish impulse. Here we have the correction zone interesting for shorts. And now, all we are looking for is to see if the market is going to offer us a replication of this bearish impulse. Now that we see it has also responded to the structure, who knows if it will want to seek the classic trap to find an interesting level of the entire distributive process that we would find at $51,590. Another area of great interest to look for that final breakthrough, to see if they want to offer us that attempt at replication. Of course, what we are looking for here is to see if we are lucky enough to be in that context where the price, after being in an uptrend channel, is unable to break through its median of the uptrend channel, this being the last visit that potentially confirms a prelude to a downward directional movement. Basically, you see, we're playing with hypotheses. Frankly, we don't know what the market is going to do, but if what I'm explaining to you ends up being respected, then yes, we could indeed bet on this macro idea that I'm sharing with you. Look, let's see what else this hypothesis is based on, which is still to be seen whether it will come to fruition or not. Now you're looking at the Ethereum chart. Remember that this dashed line is the ceiling of the macro uptrend channel, which is actually market excess. A very well-identified level, as you can see the great and very good opportunities, of course, before failing, that it offered in the market. And it's no secret. You have it in previous videos how we looked for this long, and you just saw also in this same video, as in the previous one in the last live stream as well, how we were looking for the long from this point. Well, here we are very aware of one thing, and for that, let's quickly go to the daily time frame. Look at the Ethereum chart, how we're in a macro uptrend channel, how this dashed line is an excess and how we're surpassing it now. Of course, the market has a lot of bullish momentum, but we can't overlook, as speculators, as traders who have no ego whatsoever, since we're not trying to predict the future, to see that we're facing a potential window of opportunity based on everything we're seeing. The analysis is quite simple in the sense that, hey, we validated the excess of the channel. Smart money has recognized it as such, and now it's doing so again. It's then when we should ask ourselves, since we're in a scenario of excess by itself, is it slipping away from our hands, and within it, again, we see aggressive action. Honestly, we don't know if this will hit all-time highs tomorrow, but here we're not trying to rub the crystal ball. Instead, through a cross-technical analysis, as we've baptized it in Crypto Insight, when we cross several cryptos, we realize one thing and fill the 15-minute chart. If you've seen distribution in Bitcoin before, here you have the same thing. In Ethereum, it's evident evident that distribution has occurred to reach a well-drawn trend line. Remember, on the daily chart. And if we draw it well, they've sought it to the tick, to the millimeter, working on the hypothesis of, hey, what if this is a trap? Now I'm going to tell you what we should see on the Ethereum chart to assess that idea I just shared with you about Bitcoin. See if we have that upside margin for Ethereum. Hey, they haven't visited the creek yet, and if they want to do some damage, they could easily go after, without any problems, to the point of control, to the price level of $3,100. And if we see that the price from one point or another is capable of taking action and trying to revert that bearish impulse that it has already given us. And I must say, with a tremendous transactional volume, especially in the case of Ethereum, it would be an operational idea for a position. In the event that it turns out well, of course, it would be very intelligent, as we would be working on the hypothesis that all of this is a trap. And if that is validated, then the price could offer us a nice downward move. Ultimately, without any rush to try to predict the future, we seek operational ideas with coherence with sense. That limits our risk. And remember to always use stop loss so that every time a trade goes wrong, you lose very little. With the methodology of crypto insight, when it reaches the profit, we're going to seek, as in this case, those market extremes with coherence. And in the event that things go well, without intending to predict the future, we'll aim for a good stretch. I hope that's clear. You can also leave me your opinion in the comments, telling me what you think about the market, whether we're going long or short. Also, let me know which cryptocurrency you'd like me to feature in the next video. And of course, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell icon so that YouTube notifies you of future uploads. And never forget to share our content with your friends and other trading and cryptocurrency communities. Good luck with your trading, and until next time.